Hello, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Jordan Bennett believed love could be simple. He and his girlfriend, Alana Pierce, had built a gentle rhythm in Chicago. Quiet breakfast near Bronzeville, evening walks on a lakefront, Saturday grocery runs at Mariano's. She teased his careful budgeting. He admired her bright, impulsive charm. Friends said they made sense. His calm steadied her spark. He wanted that to be enough. He wanted to believe peace could endure in a world that constantly tugged at attention and desire. He never imagined a thing that would break them would begin as a silly prank meant to make her laugh and feel adored. They had met at a charity mixer in the South Loop, where her green silk dress caught the station lights like water. She asked him about his watch. He asked her about her graduate program. They swapped numbers. The conversation didn't sizzle. It settled, warm and steady. Over months, their days braided into each other. Meal prepping, shared playlists, road trips to Milwaukee, her head on his shoulder during Sunday movies. Jordan found safety in Alana's voice. He memorized her routines, how she preferred her coffee, the scent of her shampoo. He believed these ordinary devotions could outlast storms. The first ripple came as a name, Derek Hale. He was the ex who floated through Alana's stories. Too casually, Jordan thought. "We were kids," she said, and laughed it off. Still, Jordan noticed how her tone sharpened when friends mentioned Derek. She insisted there was no flame left, only ash, but ash could mark where fire remembered itself. Jordan tried to trust the dismissal. Trust, he told himself, means letting the past be the past. But in the quiet after midnight, he sometimes wondered if the past had memorized the way back to her front door. Alana loved surprises, little theatrics. On her birthday, Jordan hired a trumpet player to follow them down Michigan Avenue and play her favorite song. She filmed it, laughing, wiping happy tears. A month later, planning their just because date night, he decided to stage a playful prank. Pretend to forget the evening, then burst back with flowers and reservations at a River North spot she'd wanted. It was not malicious. He imagined her mock outrage transforming into laughter when he returned with peonies. He pictured her delighted scold. "You had me worried." He wanted to give her that flip. The setup was simple. Jordan told Alana his supervisor called an emergency meeting and he'd be stuck late. He set the table with candles and left the flowers hidden in the hall closet. He timed a food delivery to arrive right after he returned, so she'd see how thoroughly he planned. He even left his Ring camera app open, amused to watch the empty living room catch flickers of sunset across the rug. He texted her from downstairs. "Hate this timing. Rain check." Alana replied with a single bubble. "Okay." He pictured her pout. He pictured the reunion laughter. 10 minutes later, a shape appeared on the Ring feed, Alana crossing the living room like a whisper, not bothered enough to call him again. She straightened pillows, checked herself in the hallway mirror, then disappeared to the bedroom. Jordan smiled at her neatness. When the elevator chimed in the hallway, his stomach lifted. The delivery? No. Footsteps sounded heavier. The door opened with the spare key. Derek Hale walked in like he already knew the path. Not cautious, not apologetic. His hand found the small of Alana's back when she returned. She didn't flinch. She leaned into him. Jordan froze mid-breath. The app's tiny screen showed Derek glancing around. Alana laughed softly and motioned toward the couch. They spoke in subdued tones, the kind you wear when you rehearse a secrecy you think is sturdy. Derek's jacket draped over the chair he always used. He picked it instinctively. In the background, Jordan's carefully set table waited, candles patient and unlit. Jordan's chest tightened with a new kind of knowledge, the kind your body recognizes before your mind can arrange words. He watched his own home become a stage for betrayal, and the prank collapsed into dread. He told himself to close the app. He told himself to walk away, breathe, call friend. Instead, he watched Alana tilt her face up for a kiss. It wasn't a peck of confusion or an old, surprise reflex. It was familiar, practiced. Derek navigated the kitchen like this wasn't the first time. He reached for the right drawer, finding her favorite wine stopper. That detail broke Jordan more than the kiss. It meant history, repetition, habit. Love's quiet details, once precious, became proof. The prank had simply peeled back a curtain. The play behind it had been running. Jordan returned upstairs because his body needed to reclaim space, even if only surrendered intentionally. He walked in before knocking, voice caught in his throat. The flowers thudded on the floor like a heavy apology to himself. Alana's gasp sounded offended, not guilty. Derek lifted his chin, surprise flickering into challenge. Jordan could hear himself breathing. He could hear the elevator humming down the hall. The smell of peonies blurred with the wine and candle wax. He said the first true thing. "I live here." Silence pressed in. Then Alana reached for explanations that had been waiting. "You scared me," she snapped, as if defense were the same as truth. "Why are you sneaking around? You said you had to work. Are you testing me?" Jordan stared at the set table, then at Derek's familiar ease. "How many times?" he asked, voice thin. Alana lifted her eyebrows like he'd insulted her intelligence. Derek shrugged as if he were a delivery driver caught on the wrong floor. "We're just talking," Alana said, mastering a calm. The word just offended the furniture, the air, the peonies shedding in clumps. Jordan nodded once. He picked up his keys. He slept that night on his cousin Malik's couch in Hyde Park, face buried in a spare pillow that smelled like detergent and lemon. The apartment creaked in friendly ways, radiators knocking like polite neighbors. Malik didn't press. He handed Jordan a glass of water and sat nearby, silent, present. When the words finally formed, they came small. "I saw them," Jordan said. Malik's hand rose, then fell. "I thought I was doing something sweet," Jordan added, the prank catching his throat like a foolish seed. "I wanted to make her laugh." Malik said nothing that required answers. Morning came with a kind of exhaustion that blurs the edges of objects. Jordan called off work and returned to the condo only when Alana wasn't there. He packed in a day's efficiency, folding shirts, sliding books into boxes, unhooking the framed photograph on the living room wall, Millennium Park at dusk, where Alana once kissed him on a picnic blanket, promising no more looking back. The Ring camera still sat on the shelf, an accidental witness. Jordan unplugged it gently, as if it were tired too. He wrote a note on a sticky. "I'm gone. Please respect that." Alana texted first. "We need to talk." He didn't answer. Then, "You set me up." The phrasing stung. Jordan read the bubbles without replying, his hands heavy in his lap. "You made me think you were busy, and then you popped up," she wrote. "That's manipulative." He typed, deleted. He knew that speaking into a storm doesn't quiet it. It only gives it more water. Malik watched him pace and offered eggs Jordan didn't want. "You didn't make the rain," Malik said. "You just opened a window." Jordan nodded, unsure if wisdom could slow the rush of ache. By afternoon, the text swelled into paragraphs. Alana accused him of playing games and creating a scenario designed to humiliate her. "If you hadn't lied about work," she wrote, "none of this would have happened." Jordan wondered which part she meant. Derek walking in with a spare key, or the practiced gestures that made it all seem so terribly ordinary. She said the prank hurt her trust. She said surprises were childish. She said he ruined the evening she planned to talk about boundaries. He laughed once, then felt ashamed of laughing. Boundaries had already been redrawn without him. Friend began calling. Some had seen Alana's posts, carefully phrased monologues about a boyfriend who spied and tested instead of trusting. She didn't name him, but the details were unmistakable. Jordan's phone buzzed like a hive. He wanted to send the Ring footage, to slam the reality down like evidence in a courtroom drama. He didn't. Sharing it felt like participating in a spectacle that already hurt him. "What do I even say?" he asked Malik. Malik rubbed his jaw. "Say less," he advised. "The people who matter will see." Jordan sat on the floor, knees to his chest. Alana arrived at Malik's door 2 days later, voice too loud for the hallway. She wore a yellow coat he'd bought her last fall. Her face carried that righteousness that blooms when you choose a story and polish it until it looks like a shield. "You embarrass me," she said before hello. "What you did was cruel." Malik stepped aside, but hovered near. Jordan folded his arms. "I embarrass you?" he asked, careful with each word. "You did that," she said, chin steady. "You staged a scene to catch me. That's not love. That's control." She didn't mention Derek's key. "If I hadn't come home," Jordan said, "what would have happened?" The hallway swallowed sound, absorbing their breath. Alana glanced away, then back. "We were going to talk," she replied, the word talk wobbling under its own weight. "About closure." Jordan thought of the wine stopper in Derek's hand, how his fingers knew its position without searching. Closure can be fluent, too. He took a slow breath. "I won't argue with you," he said. "I'm done." She blinked, as if that were the cruelest line. "You're ending us because of a prank," she said, her voice wet with fury. The week became a maze of logistics, dividing bills, canceling joint deliveries, contacting the landlord. Each act had a shadow memory attached, a shared laugh, a nickname, a music cue, like stepping on glass you thought you'd swept. Alana's narrative grew louder online. She framed Jordan's prank as a breach that justified old conversations with Derek. She positioned herself as a woman tired of being watched. Jordan wanted to push back, to reframe it with precise timestamps and jewelry he'd found left on the wrong nightstand. He didn't. He answered necessary emails. He signed his name. He learned quiet. Sleep avoided him. He found himself driving the length of Lakeshore Drive at odd hours, headlights making silver bands along the guardrails. The city at night felt like a confidant, tall, indifferent, humming. He remembered the art museum date, where Alana cried in front of a Kerry James Marshall painting, because it felt like home and ache woven together. He wondered if ache had been her home for longer than he knew. He wondered when he'd stopped paying attention to himself. He stopped near Promontory Point and let the wind unspool the tight places behind his ribs. His mother called from Detroit. She spoke gently, like you'd do to someone who has forgotten how to hold a cup. "Baby," she said, "some people need fire more than warmth." Jordan stood at the window of his temporary sublet and watched the sun drop red behind the rooftops. "I didn't want to trap her," he said. "I wanted to make her smile." His mother's quiet traveled the line like a blanket. "You didn't trap her," she replied. "You opened the door and saw who walked in." Jordan pressed his forehead to the glass until it cooled his thoughts. Alana's final message came as a well-structured indictment. She listed his supposed offenses: secrecy, manipulation, childish dramatics. She wrote that Derek understood her history better, that he didn't demand performance. The irony scraped. Jordan reread the paragraph about history and remembered the ring of Derek's laugh. Comfortable in their kitchen, he answered with a sentence he'd practiced in the mirror: "I won't be in a relationship where I am not the person in the room." Then he muted the thread. Outside, a siren moved north, then faded, like a warning given to someone else and too late. Weeks passed. In spare hours, Jordan rearranged his life. He bought a second-hand couch. He found a plant a neighbor swore was unkillable and still managed to overwater it. He returned to the gym, not to scope revenge, but to remind his body it could carry him. He learned new routes home that did not pass her street. He cooked spicy food that made his eyes water, and decided that crying in this context counted as healing. On Sundays, he walked without purpose until he arrived at purpose anyway. He let the quiet continue its slow, precise work. News drifted back through mutual friends who couldn't help themselves. Someone saw Derek at a bar in River West with a woman whose laugh ricocheted off the bottles like coins. Someone else said Alana left the party early, face caught between anger and something harder. Jordan didn't want the updates, and yet found himself listening, as if mapping their chaos could justify his calm. Malik kept him honest. "Don't diet on their mess," he warned. "Eat your own life." So Jordan bought a new suit. He updated his resume. He said yes to a presentation he'd wanted to avoid. Therapy surprised him. It wasn't just naming pain. It was rearranging rooms in his head. He told Dr. Watts about the prank, his longing to be the person who creates delight. He admitted the meanest thought he held, that maybe if he'd loved louder, Derek would have stayed a ghost. Dr. Watts tilted her head. "You're assigning yourself both omniscience and blame," she said. "It's a losing theology." He wrote that down. They talked about boundaries that don't require surveillance, and trust that doesn't pretend danger doesn't exist. He left each session feeling tender, like skin unlearning armor. One afternoon, Alana texted again after weeks of silence. "We need closure," she wrote, as if it were a package they could hand back and forth. Jordan stared at the word. Closure had become a trick mirror in their mouths. He agreed to meet at a coffee shop near Printers Row. She arrived in a denim jumpsuit, beautiful and brittle. Her eyes scanned him for softness. "You changed everything," she began. "Your prank, your choice, blew up what we had." Jordan took a breath that reached the bottom of his lungs. "What we had was already burning," he said. Simple. She tried a different angle. "I was lonely," she said. "You were distant when you worked late." Derek felt familiar. Jordan nodded. Loneliness, he knew, makes bargains with old fires. But the arithmetic still counted. "Lonely is not the same as honest," he replied. "If you were unhappy, we could have said so out loud. You were in my home with someone you had keys for." Alana swallowed and looked toward the window. "You made a scene of it," she said, reaching for her shield. "I walked into my life," Jordan said, and didn't flinch when she blinked. As winter inched toward spring, Jordan felt the city open tabs of light everywhere. On bus windows, on dog leashes, on puddles that began to erode into sky. He found pleasure in stupid things. A perfectly right pair, a jazz trio under the red line tracks, a toddler who waved at him with sticky hands. His body stopped anticipating catastrophe. He scheduled a trip to Detroit to help his mother repaint her porch. He learned to sleep without gripping the edges of the mattress. The plant in his window put out a new leaf with the audacity of forgiveness. He heard, months later, that Derek had moved on again, as if motion were a personality trait. Alana changed her social handles, then changed them back. Friends faded. The apartment they'd shared cycled through 2 new tenants. Jordan drove by once, then decided not to again. Karma did not send him postcards. It simply minded its own gravity. He didn't need anyone to lose for him to win. But he did notice how quiet felt less like absence and more like space. He watered the plant and left the blinds open even when he wasn't home to see. Alana's last message, truly last this time, arrived without punctuation. "You ruined us," it read. The us landed like a souvenir from a trip he no longer displayed. Jordan typed, then pared it down. "I didn't ruin us," he wrote. "I stopped pretending." He hit send and felt no fireworks, only a steadying. He deleted their thread a week later. The coffee shop where they'd met for closure became just a coffee shop again, with a barista who remembered his order and a wobbly table that needed a folded napkin under one leg to keep things level. Jordan didn't turn his pain into a public mission. He didn't offer speeches about resilience. He stacked clean dishes, returned library books on time, and called his mother. He told Malik dumb jokes until they both howled. He became the sort of man who buys 2 pairs of the same socks because convenience felt like kindness. He still believed in surprises, but he understood now how they should serve the truth, not test it. He loved again, carefully, not as proof of anything, but because love still felt like bravery. He let the ordinary hold him, and it did. If you enjoyed this story, please comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.